So welcome to 4A at City Hall. Just what are your thoughts about the Christine Quinn handling of the slush fund story, since that is like the story talked about around here?
Yeah, well, Brian McLaughlin pled guilty as an assemblyman to ripping off all of his member items in the most petty detail, and nobody blames Shelley Silver. Pedro Espada, Efraim Gonzalez were both indicted for ripping off their member items, and the minority leader of the Senate was a guy named David Patterson. You may have heard of him. And nobody is blaming David Patterson. There's a long history of legislators in this city and state finding a way to enrich their families and themselves from discretionary funding. No one has ever blamed the legislative leader for that. No one has ever said that a legislative leader is to be held accountable for every cent that a legislator gets through their position in the legislature. So I think it's a totally new concept that Christine Quinn would be responsible for Kendall Stewart's chief of staff. I think it's a new concept. And now, do I think that she deserves a free pass on this? I think that remains to be seen. I might actually give her one if it turns out that it is established as a fact that the first time she ever learned about the fictitious organizations that were listed in the budget, she immediately reported it to the United States Attorney and the Department of Investigations. Now, should she have known before that there were fictitious organizations listed in the budget? Sure. So should the Comptroller. So should the Office of Management and Budget. And I don't really hold her more accountable than the Comptroller or the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget for noticing, and I think everybody should have noticed, that there were organizations listed in the budget that never got a cent, and then there were other organizations that were not listed in the budget that got a great deal of money. I think she should have been responsible for knowing that, and the Mayor's Office should have been responsible. They actually have to approve that spending. The Comptroller actually has to issue the checks. Why wasn't the Comptroller noticing that he was issuing checks to organizations that were not in the budget, and that he never issued checks to the organizations that were in the budget? So, to me, the most serious question about her conduct relates to fictitious questions, the fictitious organizations, and if in fact she did give instructions to her budget staff to take out these reserved funds, not knowing that they were placed in the name of fictitious organizations, and that they ignored her when she told them to do that, and if in fact it's proven to be true that she didn't know about the fictitious organizations to the end, then I just wonder, are we looking to get notches on our belt here as reporters and as news organizations, or are we looking to convey truthful and honest information that honestly assesses the strengths and weaknesses of public officials before they run for mayor? I think it's a perfectly legitimate area of exploration, but I'm unconvinced that it should be a fatal failing on her part, any more than it should be a fatal failing on the part of other public officials who should have noticed that there was some kind of a game going on.
You're here grading, I think, some papers for your journalism students. How would you grade the coverage of this entire slush fund scandal? Has there been one paper or news outlet that's been ahead of the curve or accurate and more fair in its coverage versus others? Or is that something you want to...
Well, I thought that Diane Cardwell's story in the New York Times that ran a couple of days ago was an excellent piece. And I think that the Times has done excellent work, as has the Daily News, in exposing individual council members who are abusing these member items. I think all of those stories are 100% legitimate. And I don't think that those stories have said that this is another shot between the eyes of Christine Quinn. They've targeted the individual council members that were abusing the program. I think it's when any news organization then carries that over and says Christine Quinn should not run for mayor, or maybe even shouldn't remain as speaker, or is a lousy public official because of the things that we found out about the abuses of these member item programs. That's the line I wouldn't cross, and some news organizations have crossed that and some haven't. And I think we have to wait and see. It's not like I am ready yet to say that I don't hold her accountable for
Right.
any of this, but I think we have to wait and see, and I don't think we have to wait very long to find out what she knew and what she did when she was informed of it.
Thanks very much. Wait,
Very
Steve,
interesting.
I'm sorry.